Hey kids, thanks for checking out this week's Watch It video. I'm Miss Leanne, and today we're going to talk about a sign, sort of like this one. Do you remember how a sign fits into our Bible story this week? Maybe you recall that there was a sign hung on the cross over Jesus' head. But what did that sign say? And why was it there? Well, in Jesus' day, when someone committed a serious crime and they were crucified as punishment for that crime, it was customary for a sign like this to be nailed to the top of the cross. And this sign would tell the name of the person along with their crime. It was an accusation. And so a criminal's sign might let everyone know that he was a murderer or an adulterer or a thief. Imagine the guilt and shame that a person would have felt as he hung there on a cross, fully exposed with his accusations or his sin on full display too. Well, that's what happened to criminals, but what about Jesus? Why did Jesus have a sign over his head? And what could his accusers have possibly written on it? We know that Jesus was without sin, and the Gospel of Luke records 3 times during Jesus' trial when even Pilate said that he found Jesus innocent. And so because Pilate could find no guilt in Jesus, the sign over his head simply read, "Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews." Well, the crime that Jesus supposedly committed was claiming to be King of the Jews or the Messiah. But that wasn't a crime at all because Jesus truly was the Messiah that he claimed to be. Jesus didn't commit a crime, yet he died a criminal's death. Do you think Jesus felt guilt and shame like the other criminals felt? You might think that Jesus didn't feel that because, like we said, Jesus himself had nothing to be ashamed of. He didn't have any sin. But the truth is, Jesus did feel guilt and shame. To help us understand this better, I want to share an activity that you guys can do with your family. First, you can use some paper or some pieces of wood and make a cross and hang it on your wall. And we'll come back to that in just a minute. Then get some sticky notes or some scraps of paper and write down some of your crimes or sins. It's kind of like we're making our own little wooden accusation signs, like the criminal signs in our stories. And I want you to think about how you've sinned this week, or maybe even today. Maybe you disobeyed your parents, or you lied, or you took something that didn't belong to you, or you sassed your mom or dad. I think we all have plenty of things that we can write down. And to get us started, I'm going to share some of mine with you. First of all, I wrote, "Miss Leanne, liar." That doesn't sound very nice, does it? But you know what? I'm not always completely honest. I also wrote down, "Miss Leanne, idolater." You know, I often fail to give God first place, and I worship or I give myself to things other than God sometimes. Here's another one. "Miss Leanne, lover of self." Sometimes I just care way more about my own desires and comforts than I care about other people. I could keep on going. I'm guilty of these sins and so many others. But for now, I'm going to put these accusations over my head, just like the criminal signs. You can put yours on the wall over your head or stick them to your shirt or something. But I want you to think about how this makes you feel. Maybe you feel really sad or embarrassed or guilty because your sin is on display and you are guilty. And you know, we should feel that way about our sin. But here's the thing, guys. We don't have to go on suffering the guilt and shame of these accusations. Because if we admit that we're guilty and we confess our sin, which is what we're doing when we write these things down on our slips of paper, and we acknowledge that our sin does deserve to be punished, we can then give that sin over to Jesus, believing that he will bear it for us. He actually did bear it for us already. And here's where our crosses come in. You can take your sticky notes with all of the sins that you've committed and put them onto the cross. This is actually a picture of what we can do through prayer. We admit our sin, we ask Jesus to forgive us, and we trust that He will bear the punishment for our sin when we transfer it to Him. Just imagine if we could gather up all of my sticky notes and your sticky notes and all of the sticky notes of all the people in the whole world and put them on this cross. Guys, that's what Jesus bore for us. You see, it wasn't His crimes that were nailed to His cross, it was ours. And because of His great love for us, Jesus willingly suffered our guilt and shame so we don't have to. This is how Colossians 2:14 puts it. Jesus canceled the record of charges against us and took them away by nailing them to the cross. If you do what we just talked about, Jesus cancels out the charges against you. And that provides forgiveness and reconciliation with God. And I want that for each one of you. So if you understand that, and if you do those things for the very first time this week, please let me know so we can celebrate that wonderful news together.